Hi. Sorry, I'm driving.
No problem. No problem. Hey, Jackie.
Hello. Hi.
We'll give it a few more minutes just to see if others are going to join today.
I love the purple, Yomika.
Thank you.
Pretend you're at school. No, because they're tired. No, I might be. No, if you're here though. Can you pretend like
We're just going to give it another minute and allow people to join. I think there's another person yet. Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
How you doing?
Well, we're going to get started in a minute here. We're just going to give people just a little bit more time to join this afternoon.
Okay. Are you in Albany? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a colleague here who's in Rochester. They're already getting the snow. So are you getting it in New York as well, Daniela?
Yeah, supposed to be getting several inches tonight. I think it started. I got the shades closed. I didn't want to see.
Yes, we have snow. The schools are closed tomorrow. It's the whole package here.
Well,
you're all set.
How much are they expecting?
I have no idea. I'm Brazilian, so it's always a lot of snow for me. It's like everything, it's a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
no, we really haven't had anything yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we're going to get the brunt of it. I hope not. Would yeah.
It said 15 to 20 for Albany.
Wow. 16 to 20?
How much?
Are you talking about inches?
Yeah.
No. Oh my God.
Right, wasn't it 15 to 20? Or?
No.
15 to 20 is what Channel 10 is saying right now.
For Albany, New York?
Yes.
That's insane. Oh my God. I had to peek out the window just a minute.
All right, so we'll get started here. Thank you everyone for joining tonight. Tonight for our training session, our Parent Advocacy Boot Camp, we are going to be discussing New York State student performance. And I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and if anyone else joins, Daniela will let them in. Here we go. Oh, we have Natasha, so I spoke too soon. As I said, our training session tonight is for New York student performance. And what we're going to cover tonight are reading and writing, math, graduation, how big is the achievement gap, student performance compared to other states in the country, and charter schools performance, and finally what you can do about New York student performance. And I want to welcome everyone. So our first topic, again, is are New York students learning to read and write? As you can see from the chart here, the answer is depends. Less than half of New York students in grades 3 through 8 can read at grade level. So on the state exams, we have students proficient in grades 3 through 8 in ELA at 45.2% in 2018, and a small gain in 2019 to 45.4%. And we know that that means that nearly 60% of students in grades 3 through 8 in New York State who've taken these tests cannot read at grade level. Less than half of New York City students, 1 in 4 students in Buffalo, less than 1 in 5 students in Rochester, 1 in 5 students in Syracuse, and 1 in 3 students in Yonkers can read at grade level. And so what that means for us, let me just let everyone digest this a little bit before I go on. You see what we have here. And some of these numbers, of course, are devastating.
Are you willing to share these slides, post them somewhere or send them?
Yes.
Or?
Yes. Yes. We will definitely be sharing the slides. We also will have a video of all of our trainings. So, yes. In this information, you'll see, again, the source at the bottom. Toward the end of today's training session, you'll be able to take a look at all of this and more for yourself as well. So what's the story for math? Less than half of New York students in grades 3 through 8 can do math at grade level. So we see we have, again, less than 50%, 44.5 in 2018, 46.7 in 2019. And here we have the breakdown for the regions across the state. Less than half in New York City, 1 in 5 in Buffalo, less than 1 in 5 in Rochester and Syracuse, 1 in 3 in Yonkers.
Wow.
These are devastating numbers for the students, certainly, and we all, should take a moment and pause to really take this in, and what that means if 1 in 5 students in 3rd through the 8th grade, right, is proficient in math. By the time you're in the 8th grade, you are setting your trajectory for what you're going to do in high school and what happens in life. And if you are one of these students who numbers are in these, the teens and the 20s, not to mention that means that the majority of students certainly, right, are on the problem, right, is the majority of students are on the other side of this fence.
Do you want to ask questions while you're doing this, or would you prefer we wait?
Absolutely, please. Do you have a question?
We represent all students, so they're charter and district schools?
This is statewide, yes. We'll see where charter students fall. We won't see, we do not have the information divided yet regionally versus charters, but again, we'll do something where you can see, you can check for yourself what's happening for some of the charters in any school across the state. But here's what we're looking at here are statewide numbers.
Okay.
District-wide, I should say district-wide numbers. Graduation numbers. Are New York students graduating from high school? The answer is yes. 83.4% of New York students graduated from high school in 2019. 77.3 high school students, graduates were able to get a Regents diploma. So that was the Regents as well as the advanced, the Regents with advanced designation. That's the good news. The bad news is that there are huge racial gaps in the statistics. Statewide, 12% of Black students and 70% of Latino and Hispanic students earned advanced designation, compared with more than 47% of white students. So the numbers are good. The racial disparities, right, remain a problem, and this is part of the achievement gap that plagues far too many students. And I'll stop again to find out if anybody else has any questions or comments. Moving on, what are New York graduation rates beyond the overall? So there are also disparities between cities. Rochester, 63%, Syracuse, 65%, Buffalo, 65%, New York City, 77%, Yonkers, 88%. So Yonkers is the one area in the state, in terms of the big 5 cities, of course this doesn't include suburbs and rural schools, that beats the state average. Charters come in at 81%. All right. Graduation rates increased most in charter schools in 2019. It had an increase by 2.9%. So charter schools are doing well, and they're improving. And they've had the biggest gains in improvement. And it's important to know that located in cities, Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, New York City, Yonkers, than they would be in the suburban districts and some of the maybe some of the high wealth, low need districts. Some more details on the on the achievement gap here. What you can see is that compared to their white peers, Black and Hispanic, and Latino and Latinx students still are on the wrong side of the achievement gap, and there's work to be done here. And that's the same is true for ELA as it is for math. Asian students are beat their white peers, and I at the risk of centering white students as the standard for students, I think it's just important to point this out in terms of equity, in terms of, as we understand, the role race and racism has played, and certainly in education, it's important to make that distinction and look at these with honest and clear eyes.
I think it's important to notice that even the percentage for whites are also not great. There's also if only 50% of children are actually being proficient, it is also not a very good statistics.
Right. That's a great point, Danielle. And when you break down this data, and the association will put more of this out and make it certainly available to the council, parents, when you break some of this data down among or within Rochester or Buffalo or Syracuse, you'll see that the numbers fall in some cases single digits for proficiency for students, which is devastating. There's not, I'm at a loss for words how to explain 9% of students being proficient at 3rd grade, and the number, right? And so the comparison or the breakdown along race is that in some of these districts as well, 40%, 30% of white students. So it's a problem across the board. It's a significant, profound problem among Black and brown students. But this is a problem across the board in a lot of districts. Excuse me. So some more information on the achievement gap. I'm just going to pause for a second while I just get a drink of water.
You did say you were going to share the slides, right?
Yes, Deborah, all our trainings are going to be on our website available, the slides and the video, as soon as we launch in January. But I'm happy also to send to you by email.
Yeah, these are good. Thank you.
Okay, excuse me, I just got a little tickle in my throat. Had to get a sip of water. Okay, so back to this. How big is the achievement gap? As you can see, this is 8th grade. And again, one of the things I want to make sure that people really appreciate is, again, where you are in 8th grade. In 8th grade, you are ready to make decisions about your high school, which is going to make decisions about your college, which is going to make decisions about your life. And we're looking here at proficiency gaps, which show that, on the whole, Black and Latino students really are at a significant disadvantage going into high school. We see there's not a lot of, while they may graduate, the graduation rates are good, the question is how prepared are they, and are they ready to go to college and succeed, and are they ready to compete and succeed in the world, again, among their peers. And you could see the proficiency gap here.
Yeah, I a long time ago, before I retired from a not-for-profit organization called Read to Succeed Buffalo, I was executive director. And I'm sure you've heard that educators say that a child needs to be able to read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade, if not sooner, because that's what you see. They don't recover. They don't recover. And, 8th grade is too late. Not for everyone, but I mean, it's too late for most.
That's so true. The time that they need to create those habits is at the earlier age. It's so important. Ooh. Sorry, guys. I was trying to switch over from my phone to my laptop. It's important that they have those habits at an early age. When we was on the call yesterday, I mentioned that I remember my mom sent me a report card from when I was like in first grade. The same mistakes that I make on the report card, I find in myself now with like reading. And I never even paid that no mind. I don't even think my mom even realized that. You know, it was the 80s and the 90s or whatever. I think this is where the data came from, you know, to show now. So that is so important about the kids' reading habits.
And I want to mention that there are some charter schools that do an incredible job and get these kids on middle grade at middle school, and they are 2-3 grade levels behind, and they catch them up. But it takes an incredible amount of work, and of course they have special tutoring and all of that. And I think that's why a lot of charters now are trying to go K-12, because they don't want to be in the catch-up business, right? And so I am not willing to give up on students. So I think we can say that like they can catch up. Yes, you can, but it's the amount of work that requires from educators and from students and from families is disproportionate. And it is much harder than just making sure that children are learning to read and to do math at the right level.
Now we'll talk a little bit more about the achievement gap, and we're going to look through the lens of a summer slide, of the slide. So summer slide is the phenomenon that happens when during a break between the end of the school year, one school year, and the beginning of the next, sometimes students experience a loss of learning, right? They've learned something through the last school year. Over the summer, all of that doesn't stick. They come back the next school year, and they need to recover some of that learning that they lost over the summer. And so that's referred to, educators refer to that as summer slide. What we have now is we have the potential, the terrifying, devastating potential to have a COVID slide of a scale that we have not seen, that has not been seen before. Because and education experts predict that the learning loss due to the COVID-19 when students were not in classroom will be worse, right, than the summer slide. And that's something that as Daniela mentioned, you know, the things that we need to do to get to recover, whether it's tutoring or there's something, those resources, those efforts have to be made. But importantly, in order to know what that slide is, in order to know where our students are and what's needed, we have to be able to do two things. And we have to be able to provide the assessment. And so I know that assessment and testings are scary terms, but we have to find a way to figure out and measure and determine what's needed. Where, you know, how has this child experienced the COVID, you know, learning loss due to COVID, due to remote learning or whatever was happening, trauma even in some cases, as a result of what's happening at home, or just this pandemic, which is causing increased anxiety and food insecurity and home insecurity, among others. So an assessment. But one thing that parents can do are ensure students are engaging in their learning environment wherever it is, right? If they are learning, are they engaged? If they're remote learning, if they're in the classroom, how do parents doing whatever is needed to make sure the students engage, and to provide opportunities to continue to learn outside of the classroom. That if one thing that COVID has taught us is that the classroom can be anywhere and is everywhere. And that providing those opportunities to learn, to read, to engage, and support and enrich learning is really important at this time. And that's one of the ways that parents are empowered to help close that gap. Like I said, assessment, a test to know where what a student needs is going to be critical. We cannot determine what are the best ways to use whatever resources will be available without first making an assessment of what's needed, tailored to the child. And then parents can advocate, provide for the people who make the decisions, right, for lawmakers, elected officials, to provide the resources to support learning recovery. Does anybody have any questions on this slide? Or comments?
I don't have any questions. I had a comment, and it's about the slide prior about the 8th grade. It was something that you said that made me think about when New York City I mean, they call them middle schools upstate New York, but when I was in middle school, it was called junior high school. And one of the things, my school was like the last school to keep ninth grade in the junior high school, and a lot of kids kind of fell short because they still had that mindset of the middle school classes, right? And ninth grade is technically a high school grade. So what happened was a lot of the kids, when they got to high school for 10th grade, they were behind. So it is important that that the charter schools kind of keep that take them from K through 12, especially for kids that's in New York City, because New York City, you have, I don't know if they still do it, but years ago you used to get this big old book that looked like a white pages, and you pick what high school you want to go through. And when they was doing that, if you were coming in from out of the junior high school like I was, you were kind of behind everybody else. Unless you had like more, you had to take, any kid that was taking like those advanced classes definitely didn't come out of like those junior high schools that had the ninth grade in it. So I like that slide. I think this is so important that parents pay attention to that 8th grade part, because once you leave out of middle school and into high school, it's like you're starting like this career path, so to speak, or like like a stamp from 8th grade, well, from ninth grade to 12th grade, that's going to kind of follow your life pattern. So I appreciate that slide. Thank you for pulling it back up.
Sure. Thank you for the comment. And so now, how do students, on your students, how does that performance compare to other states in the country? And so we see here that for Black students, they are on par really with their peers nationally in reading, which is not necessarily right. So we know already that means trouble, but the trouble appears to be something that's a nationwide phenomenon, both for Black students and for white students. Latino students, Latinx, Latina students, 8th grade, we're talking about here 8th grade, they are actually behind in reading nationally, while their white students are as the converse, where they outperform their peers in other states. So you see there's the imbalance there. Asian students in 8th grade in New York are behind their peers nationally in reading, while white students outperform their peers in other states. So this gives us sort of a comparison. We can look across the country to see, again, where New Yorkers are with their peers across the country, just as opposed to just within the state. And you can see there's a mix. How do charter schools perform? The slide that many people have been waiting for. The majority of students are able to read and do math at grade level. So you see we have 54% ELA, between 55 and 58% for math. And these numbers certainly far outperform the statewide averages, and certainly a lot of the districts in which these schools are located. But these are great. These are numbers too that we all, and I'm sure every charter leader would agree, we see this as a challenge to do better, to even increase. And I think that's one of the things that I find the most heartening when every time I talk to charter school leaders and encounter charter school teachers and educators, is that they are focused on how to do better on the work of student achievement and making sure students get the best out of their educational experience, which is why, right, many of you have started, many charter leaders have started schools in the first place. So this is where we are. This is from here, right, onward and upward. And as like I said, with the graduation rate, the largest increase last year was among charter schools at 2.9%. So I expect this number to grow and grow.
And I think I just want to note one thing. Sorry, go ahead, Natasha.
No, I just had a question. I think as the years have progressed, it's getting better and better. But in talking to like people across the state, Yumika, what do you think is the main hurdle or the obstacle, like preventing us from getting there faster, or like, I don't know, why aren't the numbers better? Because if you bring home a 50, 58, a 55 or 54 on a test grade at home, that's failing. So it's like, we're not failing our kids, but that's still not, you know, passing,
Right.
or
Right.
it's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this,
Can I just add one thing that I think it's important to note that we charter schools across New York disproportionately serve low income and kids of color, which is not true for the statewide numbers for the states that we are comparing. So we are doing much better with a population of students that, you know, historically have not performed so well. So I think there is that discrepancy, but also I agree with you, Natasha, that there's definitely, you know, room for improvement. But I'll let Yomika answer that. I just want to make sure we know that we're not comparing here apples to apples. Like the vast majority of the charter students are low income and are kids of color.
Mm-hmm. That even begs to differ to like, why do you think that we're here, Yomika?
yeah. So when I look at these numbers and I understand that charter schools educate predominantly, that the enrollment is predominantly Black, Latino students and poor students, right? So the Black, brown, and poor students that we often talk about, that you hear over and over again. I look at these numbers and I say, and this group is beating the state's average, all in. Wealth, right? Wealth, race, etc., right? They all in. These students are beating those odds, right? And I see that as a sign of, right, one, that this is a formula that has some promise to it. I'll say it that way, right? That charter schools are delivering based on these metrics, right, for these students, and in terms of reading and being able to do math. So that's one. The question of, you know, sort of why does it take so long is that there are, right, charters are one tool, right? There are many different aspects of what's needed for students to do well, to feel well, to be well, to produce the results that we all want them to produce. And I think one of those things is time. So I am optimistic that it's you know, 55 or whatever, 54 or 60% today, right? If next year, well, next year will be the post-COVID year, so we'll see. But you know, the next year, the next normal year, if they're not advancing, there's another problem. But I think resources, providing more students opportunities to go to charter schools, and one of the things that charter schools does, as you all know, is they have the opportunity to provide a curriculum, environment, etc., that parents can choose because they understand what works for their child, what their children need. And they tend to be smaller. They're more connected, right? The smaller the schools, the more connected. So there's a lot of opportunities there. And then finally, in terms of, you know, maybe the why, is some of what Daniela mentioned before, that charter schools, to the extent that you maybe sort of have a child from K all the way up, right? Then you know that you know what the child has learned. You know, you've provided the best opportunities based on what you're teaching in school. Children, you know, come from different circumstances, come in and out of schools, and some may come with, you know, from another place where they have a reading level or a math level that's not at, you know, at grade level. So they spent that time bringing some of these children up. And I know that one of the first schools that I visited downstate, the principal explained to me that they were receiving students, and they were, you know, students came in and let's say the 8th grade, and in some cases, it's the 8th grade, and they find out that the student has a 2nd grade reading level. They have to, you know, and I remember in that conversation, I you know, I'm a child of the 80s, and said, you know, I thought that went out in the 80s. I thought, you know, that all of that's gone now. Well, those are the bad old days when things like that happen. So, you know, students present as they are, and the great thing about charter schools is they love them no matter how they come, and provide the, you know, what's needed. As all, you know, not just charter schools, district schools do the same thing. This isn't something that's only in the realm of charter schools. I just know that charter schools do that, and so again, that some of those numbers may be reflected here. So it's time.
In line with that, Yomika, too, you know, success, their numbers are really, really high as far as student achievement. And I think a lot of that is because, like how you said, if the longer you have a child with you, and if you can get them from K to 12, the better that they'll do. And they don't backfill after a certain point. And so they don't really take in kids that they haven't already had. So I think that's why they're able to do that, because they get you and they keep you, and then you can't come in at any point in the year. So I think that's helpful too. And that's why I think their numbers are so good, because they're not taking kids, in 8th grade, and it can only be, they have a 2nd grade reading level. So I think that helps too. But unfortunately, everybody can't operate like that. So
Right. No, and again, that's the beauty of having an option, right? That you pick the one that's best for your child. So there's all those flavors of ice cream, are somebody's favorite. So that's the important thing, is that it works. It works for the parents and students who are there. It works for the parents who are students who are wherever school it is. It works for those parents and students, that they have a right to choose that, and that's what charter schools are about.
yeah.
And schools show it in their results.
Yep. And 55 is better than 35.
Absolutely. So that's our floor, and we're trying to keep going up for there for all students. All students should be, I don't care what kind of school they are, charter, district, private, homeschool, right? We want an educated child to become an educated adult, to save us all from ourselves, right? And to carry on and to make this world, the better place is the ideal. And they all deserve the right to be well educated, period, no matter race, zip code, wealth, or anything else.
Yeah, I'm thinking another casualty of COVID is that we haven't had the state assessments in 2020, and it's not looking like we're going to have them this coming year either. So looking at a trajectory is going to be really hard because we won't have the data.
And finding that, I'm going to go back to that, right? To test where to know what the student needs, right? It's data to find out, sort of how are we doing? How is this education that's being provided effective? Is the student getting what the student needs? So we need ways to test that, and also finding out what the student need. Is there that, what kind of recovery is needed or not?
Yeah, well, we're doing that school by school. All I'm saying is when the comparison across the state is going to be difficult because we don't have a single way to compare all of us.
Apples to apples, yeah. All right, so what can you do about New York students' performance? Share this data, right? Share the data. We will make it available. Many residents, New York residents, don't know how big this problem is. I'll just ask you by show of hands, either actual hands or the reactions on the screen. For how many people is this new information?
I mean, I knew it wasn't good.
Yeah.
For Black and brown kids overall, but yeah, I mean, having the statistics is good to know, good to have.
And so we use this information to advocate for schools that are helping students achieve. That's the point, is to really be an informed advocate about what's happening and what's needed, and then demand that elected officials have concrete solutions for this crisis. Right, help to address any of the recovery issues, help to address any of the issues that are impacting students in terms of trauma. Again, food insecurity, housing, just maybe loss of family, loss of school time, of contact with their peers, of social interaction, the social-emotional needs. All of those things will be part of solutions to help students recover and then do well and get back on track and then succeed. And that's what we want them to do, succeed and thrive. All right, so here's a part of the session today where you can go online, and you can see the link here, but I'm actually going to ask you we're actually going to drop a different link in the chat. We're going to drop the one without the parents. Daniela, can you do that? So it's the entire link up to .gov, and then drop the parents one. And it's going to it's going to send you right to the New York State Education Department website, where you can go in there and find your school. So what I want everyone to do is take a moment to out what your school district, in the district where your school is located, right, the city or the school district where your charter school is located, check them out. And then let's have a discussion. So I'm going to stop my screen share. Go through this.
Yomika, I definitely did that the day that David was on the call.
Yeah.
I looked it up. That was one of the things that I like about Uncommon Troy Prep when my you know how you go and do like the orientation. So they compared their data compared to like the higher income population. So I think it was like it might have been Colony School District. Mr. Thatcher, you on the call, you probably could correct me if I'm giving the wrong school district, but that was one of the things that I love because it was showing like the school district that we were in, the school district that was considered like a higher income rate. And then it compared the data side by side, ELA and math, and it stood out. You know, Troy Prep stood out. And that was one of the things that was beneficial for like if you're a new parent coming into a charter school, and they do it every year. So I done sat through about 4 of those, 3 back to back. But it was good information, and it was based off of also the third grade test and then the eighth graders. So you got to see like how the kids that were like my children will be one show data when they get older from being a kindergartner into 12th grade. They'll be able to be in that group of people because they didn't come in fourth grade or they didn't come in eighth grade. So I think that other slide that you had shown is going to be interesting in the next couple of years because especially for schools like Uncommon that started added on grades over the past couple of years. So our numbers should be going up.
Good. Good. That's that.
Yeah, we do that at our schools in the city too. We do the comparison. So I think that helps with a lot of parents, and it impresses a lot of parents, and it makes them feel like they're making the right choice.
I think the reason the information was developed and required to be put out there is exactly that, so that parents can make an informed choice and know how they're doing, and not necessarily to even change schools, but to be able again to be advocates to say these are the results, this is what's happening. I want it to change or do better, or congratulations, depending on the results, and let's keep it up, and how can I help? And certainly can make decisions about where their children are going to school. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else take a look there and find anything startling, interesting, anything they want to share with the group about what they found about their school district or a neighboring school district or a school district or a school that they're interested in, their school? Give you a minute to pop in.
I have to hop off, guys, to go to a community board meeting, but this was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays if I don't see you guys before the new year.
All right. Happy New Year. Be safe out there.
You know what I wish they would add, which would be interesting if they can add like the student reading levels. Because it shows like the graduation rate, but so my district, well, Troy City School District says the 85% 4-year graduation rate, and I mean that's okay, but I wonder how many of those children that are in that data actually can read pretty well or have a great score in math. Yeah, I wish they can add like some more little like stuff maybe that where you can dive more into the data.
So I'm going to see if I can pull up Troy, because you should be able to see all of that data and more. Let's see. Troy City School District. Let's see if I can pull it up.
I definitely know that like Troy Prep elementary school compared to like our right down the hill school, we were definitely outranking them. And I didn't get that from like any data. I actually was going to volunteer at the other school, and the work that the fourth graders was getting that I was helping them with in after school, my son was doing that in second grade. So that the comparison was like extreme. It was mind boggling to me because I couldn't understand how um the investment is, you know, the same children, it's the same area, how the investment was so different.
Right. And that the transparency among what's actually being, you know, taught and what students are learning, I think, is another important piece of this puzzle that we will hopefully over time see. Just as now we're seeing, you know, the school report cards. I can remember when the data was made available in a way that was accessible by parents and the public, and that was a big deal. So hopefully it will drill down to that level. I agree. I pulled up the Troy City School District. You can see it on my screen, and we can take a look through here. If I can get it to do this, the assessment rates, and you'll see that, you know, ELA is 34%. Oh boy, I've gone down a rabbit hole here. So I apologize. I thought it would be easier for me to pull it up here so they could see the breakdown of these results, because you can actually see the race among it. It has every breakdown of the data of race, whether economic need, whether or not the student is their housing status, students English language learners, etc.
That was under the transparency button.
I think what she was saying is that the number we are looking is the grade level 3 and 4 combined, which are the proficient, but not like the extra breakdown on who are level 4, level 3, level 2, level 1.
That's good too, because I didn't even realize it was. I didn't see that part neither. How it was broken down by the groups, the age excuse me, their grades. Sorry, them numbers is terrible though. When you break it down like that, when you look at the 85%, like, oh, okay, but ooh, that's kind of scary.
Take another shot at see if I can pull up Troy. And we'll look here. Do you want to look at a school, or do you want to look at? Well, we'll do just a quick roll through the ELA data. And what I like about this is sort of this big, bright information. And again, the conversation we were having about the breakdown of race. In this case, all students, regardless of race, in the city of Troy, the proficiency rate for reading at or above grade level is 29% as of 2019. And you can see where they compare here to state.
Wow, that's bad. Got to do better.
And then as we scroll down, you can see the rates by gender, right? So we're females, 33% are proficient, male, 24%. We do the same thing by ethnicity, multiracial, 28. The numbers, the number of students that are Indian American or Alaska Native is not statistically significant, or not any in 2019. Same thing for Asian, Native Hawaiian. White students, 37% proficient. Something we talked about earlier again about the numbers are not great regardless of race. But then you still see the disparities. Black, African American, 20%, less than 1 in 5. And so, through that link, you have to click at the top, click district, and then you can find the information of what I'm looking at here. And then you can also find, you can go back and look at on a school level, so you can find any school, any district that has to report these, which are most of the school districts and schools throughout the state. And again, general education students versus students with disabilities, and, non-English language learners, English language learners, and more economically disadvantaged, etc. So that is it. I think everyone here is registered. Everyone here, have you registered for our? I know Helene and Deborah, you're back again. I'm not sure, John, is this your first time? Have you registered? Are you coming back for the to attend our next advocacy session? I hope that you do. and I hope that you found this informative and useful. But I would love to get some feedback. So I really want to have some discussion, closing remarks, some comment on how are we doing? Is this useful? Did we have good information here for you? And yes, it's Danielle. Thank you, Danielle. We have one more session. It's going to be charter myths. And the idea, again, is everybody is going through these sessions. Next year, we hope to have some really empowered advocates out there to talk to elected officials, really make the case they can support their schools and support their children in their educational needs.
You guys did good.
Thank you.
These are really very, very helpful. I'm just wondering, when does the advocacy begin in earnest? I mean, when do you hit the ground?
It will be next year when session starts. So the next legislative session starts in January. Budget will come out about January 18th. It's around that time when we really start to see what the state is planning for schools. We hope that for education generally and for communities, we hope that parents either just before that time or certainly around that time start making outreach and letting elected officials know who they are, where their schools are, where their students are, and then continue from there to talk about budget, talk about legislative priorities, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Will you be able, you meaning the Charter Association, be able to develop some talking points with some of the data, for example, that you've got here? Because, you know, if we write or call, it would be very good, I think, to point out some specific facts, maybe comparing, like we just did, comparing charter school performance with district performance, for example.
Try to avoid the direct, district charter fight, because they all are our students, right? And I've said to people, a charter student looks like just like a district student. In fact, they are, right? Depending on what school they went to that year. So I try to avoid that just because to be divisive or whatever. I think it's informative, really, to sort of say, like, all of our kids need, right, more support. We need to really figure out, as Deborah, I think, was asking, sort of how do we get all students to get better sooner, right? To get these outcomes moved in the right direction. So, but we will provide that information for you, what those numbers are, what those what we see as the issue areas, and we will provide that.
That'd be great.
I think this one might be my I love all of the trainings, but I think this one I like data. I like to see like numbers that compared to like things that I actually see happening. So this was good, and I'm gonna use some of this information. I got a meeting at 7:30, and it's about education in Troy, so I can't wait to go in there and say, well, see, this is why this is important. But this is really good information that I think even like that website, I never even knew that you can get that much information just off of that website, and that's right at everybody's fingertips. And I don't think a lot of parents know. I think it's almost the same thing with like when Daniela was asking, do you know who your elected official is? I think they should know, like, do you know your school scorecard as well? Like that should be something that we add to the list of things that you should know in the area where you live at.
Yep, and that's why we say find your school, find your city, find your district. You should know. You should know.
And Yomika.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's Janique. I just wanted to add, I know that on the Enroll Buffalo site, we have the data for each one of the schools. Each school has their own resume page, but I think maybe that's a link that we could add overall.
Good. That's, it's very powerful. It's very sobering. It's very heartbreaking, depending on, what you're looking up. And I think it brings jarring, as Jackie just put in the chat, absolutely. It really lets you know that there's work to be done. There's a lot of ground to cover. Very unequal experiences in terms of education, too.
I gotta throw this out there. I'm sorry, I keep talking, but this is like so good. It's almost like scary. So the information that you guys shared and the information that's on their website, I know that there's a lot of schools that are, I guess, putting money into, and this is like outside of charter, just schools in general, where they put money into things that may not even be necessary. Like if your school is performing at that low reading level, maybe we should focus more of our activities based on that versus, um, I don't know, like I definitely think kids need art, but arts and crafts and things like that, and music and stuff. But how can we prioritize some of that stuff and then work on like STEM? Like that's a huge thing, and I think in like the next 20 years, like most of the jobs are going to be based around STEM if they're not already starting to do that. So it's scary seeing that how low, especially like when you were showing my area, my school district, how low. I think it was what 19% for African American kids. That's like so scary.
Yeah. If you spend any time on that site and really start to examine, I'm sad to report that you will be even more scared than that. There are some devastatingly low numbers here. The good news is that that we are talking about education, so we are talking about solutions. We are talking about the ways to use this information that we find and to say exactly the question that you asked, Deborah. What can we do? Right? Do we need to redirect resources to where they're needed? Right? The question that Natasha said. How can we bring it up? Absolutely. All of those things and more are what this data helps us to articulate and better understand. Encourage everyone to use it, to spend some time with that, with the information. Let's see, Deborah, you said in the chat, I think another issue with the data comes from the parents' reading level. That's an absolutely fair and good point. That the ability for parents to be able to help and engage and advocate for their children, their reading level, their reading and math levels are important for them to be their child's best advocate, to help with school, with help with others too, and to compete for themselves out in the world, which is exactly what we're talking about with students, right? The students who will become the adults, who will become the parents of the future. We want them all to succeed. We want everyone to have a fair shot. That's the least that we could do, is everybody gets a fair shot to live their best lives. So. All right, any other questions? Everybody's ready for our next, let me see if I can pull this up, let me point you to our boot camp, our next, yeah, Jackie said, I'm ready, all right, and if you get ready, stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? Here's our schedule for our advocacy boot camp. You will see here that we still have, the Advanced Charter Advocacy will be our next one. That comes up the 22nd. In terms of new sessions that have not been done before, Charter Myths and Facts will be our next one. That starts on January 7th, and we'll do it again on the 12th. We thank you for attending tonight. We will do this again on January 5th at 6 p.m. Share the word. And we will do this again throughout the year. So if there are parents and people that you know, please share the word about these training sessions. If they say, boy, I wish I could have, you tell them you're in luck because you can sign up for the next slate of sessions. We will be looking for parents to join this advocacy effort and join this boot camp. Again, the point is twofold: to become education advocates and empower parents. This information is good to know, whether or not, even if you're only doing this to advocate for singularly your child to be better informed as you deal with your district, your school, and your child's future. So, thank you. Have a good night, and I hope to see you next time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the C and the A?
Bye, bye, bye,
Have a
everybody.
good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Me shark. Me a spider. Me. He's Spider-Man. Me shark. No.
Bye.
No. No.